Hey guys, it's me, ExandShadow. I'm sorry about not posting stuff. Again, I'm working on it. So anyway, if you have a DSi, you probably know there's not a lot going for you on the DSi Wear. It was a neat idea at first, and it's going to be, thankfully, expanded on more for the 3DS. But as it stands right now, there isn't much to get you to want to download things on the DSi. However, with Shantae's Whiskey's Revenge, I think that I can say that there is some promise to this system. For those of you who don't know, Shantae is a game that was originally on the Game Boy Color, and I've never played it, but I remember seeing a lot of advertising for it, and I thought that it would be a pretty cool game at the time. Apparently, the original was pretty good, so when I saw it was on the DSi and I saw that it was only $12, I said I'd give it a shot. Now, being $12, it's also the most expensive thing on the DSi shop, but it's also one of the only things that's really worth your money on there too, so whatever. Anyway, in Shantae, you play a half genie called Shantae, and there's this evil pirate named Risky Boots, and she's being all evil and shit, and you gotta go stop her. Not the best plot in the world, but it doesn't really have to be. The writing's pretty good. Not the best I've ever seen, but pretty good. There are some funny lines. It's not the most hilarious thing. It could have been fleshed out more, but it's good for what it is. But the plot isn't really what's important. It's more of the gameplay and the just general aesthetics of the game that make it more appealing. The gameplay is similarly to a Castlevania or a Metroid, in the sense that it's a non-linear world and you go from place to place just trying to figure out what to do. Now, they go with the Metroid Fusion sort of non-linearity in this sense, where they tell you where to go and what to do, but not exactly how to do it. Like, for example, they'll say, at one point, they'll say, you need to find this, this, and this to make us some coffee. Long story, don't ask. So you have to go and you have to find a coffee maker, an egg, and some coffee beans. But you don't know where these are, so you have to go find it yourself. I like this sort of non-linearity because you know what you're supposed to be doing, but there's a challenge to finding it, as opposed to if you were playing something like Super Metroid and you just have no idea what you're trying to do. But anyway, yeah, it plays similarly to a Castlevania or a Metroid in that sort of way. Your main method of attacking is using your hair sort of as a whip. If you played Castlevania, you'll be familiar with how the game controls attacking-wise. You jump around, and you've got some magical attacks that you can use, that you can buy and then use. However, when it comes to controls, it generally worked, except for one problem. This game suffers from Sonic 4-itis. Which is what I'm going to call it. And for those of you who haven't played Sonic 4, it's when if you stop pressing on the control pad, you'll just stop in midair. And now, it's not nearly as much of a problem in Shantae as it was for Sonic 4, because in Sonic 4, you're moving fast, and if you let go of the D-pad while you're in the middle of a speed section, you could fall into a bottomless pit and die. With Shantae, it's not as much of a problem, seeing as the platforming is not nearly as intensive. But still, it makes it feel a little bit awkward until you get used to it. I'm not sure if the original Shantae controlled like this, and if it did, well, I don't see any problem in changing it, because that's how the fans are going to remember it. And it's not a game-breaking issue, it's just something that you might want to look out for. But anyway, across the journey, you'll unlock 3 different transformations, which are your main power-ups for the game. You've got a monkey, an elephant, and a mermaid. The monkey is mostly used for some platforming elements, which are pretty good and enjoyable. Not the most brain-taxing or skill challenging of platforming I've ever seen, but still good. The elephant, which is woefully underused, you can break blocks with it, and that's about it. I wish they did something more with this, like having the elephant be heavy enough to do stuff, but I can understand where they wouldn't have enough time to put it in, as it's a DSiWare game. They've got space constraints and all that shit. And then you've got the mermaid, which allows you to go into water. Out of all 3 of them, you use the monkey way more than the other 2, and I thought that was a little bit disappointing. From what I can see of the original game, a lot of the appeal was being able to use all of your different transformations equally as much, but whatever. But yeah, from a gameplay perspective, Shantae plays pretty well. The only problem I have with Shantae is that it's not fleshed out enough. I mean, it's plenty challenging the first time through. It's a pretty long adventure, especially for a DSiWare game. The problem is that because of space constraints, there are only a few major areas to look for, and they aren't that big. And of course, this is due to the DSiWare constraints. You mean you've got 2 field areas, 2 beach areas, which are both really small. You've got a forest area, you've got a desert area, and then you've got some dungeons, and that's about it. Now, the areas that they made are good, but the problem is that the game itself is just so short. Well, not short in the way that it's short the first time through, but it's such a small game, and that this area you're traveling around is small. It can get a little bit repetitive by the time you get to the end, so it might be a good thing that it ends as quickly as it does. But yeah, one thing that I think would have made Shantae a better game overall is if they had just forgone the DSiWare stuff and just made it a whole DS game. I would have loved to have this be a much longer adventure and a much bigger adventure because it's a really good game for what it is. But yeah, gameplay wise, it's still fun though. I'd recommend playing it. If you like anything like Metroid or Castlevania, you'll enjoy playing this. But however, the best aspects of this game has got to be its presentation. This is a stunning looking game. Now, this is probably some of the best sprite work I have ever seen in my life. The sprites are so detailed and animate so well. It's amazing, actually. I'm so sad that they don't have any sprites for these on like Spriter's resource because this is some really great stuff. The way that the game animates is probably its greatest strength, really. Because if you look at how well Shantae is animated herself, it's amazing. Like, her hair bobs up and down realistically when she walks, and all this other stuff. It's just really, really pretty to look at. And there's also some areas where they do this foreground-background jumping thing, and it doesn't do a whole lot for the gameplay aspect, but it looks really cool. And you can imagine that this is something that could be expanded on once you get the 3D element of the 3DS. So I hope they make a Shantae game for the 3DS because I think that could really show what that system is capable of doing. The soundtrack's also pretty good too. The tunes are really catchy. I'm not sure if they have an official soundtrack out. I'm pretty sure it's on YouTube. But the themes are really catchy. I know for sure there's a few remixes from the original game. So for fans of the original game, you're going to like those. My favorite themes are probably the theme for Pumpkin Fields and the main boss theme. Speaking of bosses, there are sadly only a few, again, because it's such a small game. You've got a squid thing, a pirate ship, and a evil copy of Shantae's uncle, and then spoiler alert, final boss. The final boss is a recolor of yourself. Now, one of the things about the story I did not like is the ending. In the end, the bad guy, Risky Boots, takes away your genie half and tries to use that to destroy the world, of course. And so you kill your genie half, and now you are no longer half genie, you are just a human. Now, the way that the ending is, it feels like it just stops, and that's really disappointing. And the final boss is also just a recolor of yourself. Now, the final boss was actually pretty challenging, and it took me 4 or 5 or 6 times before I could beat him. But it's still kind of disappointing that it was just a recolor of yourself. It's kind of like Zelda 2, where it was just a Dark Link was just a recolor of Link. But the final boss was hard for me then because I was kind of underpowered. I had not found all of the magic items. But once you find all of the power-ups that you can get, you are ridiculously overpowered. Like, there's this one power where you get there's this one power-up where you can get a magic ball to swing around you and it'll hurt enemies. Now, you can upgrade it so that you have 1, 2, or 3. And when you have 3 circling around you, the game is pretty much over. You've won. Bosses become ridiculously easy. You're pretty much immune to enemy attacks. It's just slightly ridiculous. The only downside is that it uses up a lot of your magic energy, but you can buy magic refilling potions for not that much money, and you find the stuff lying around all over the place, so it's not really that big of a deal. But in the end, Shantae is a good game that could have been great if it wasn't tacked down to the DSiWare constraints. I don't know what convinced them to go with the DSiWare. I'm sure that they just thought that it was probably cheaper that way. But if they could have gone with a full blown out game, I think this could have probably been one of my favorite games of all time. Unfortunately, it isn't. But for anybody with a DSi, I recommend going out, getting a Wii Points card, and buying this game, because I really want to see this franchise to be supported. But anyway, yeah, I'm ExandShadow. I hope to get more videos out for you guys soon. I'll see you guys later.